As a kid, I thought I was just mooching snacks from the old lady next door. But at her funeral, I learned I'd been saving her life in ways I never even knew. Welcome back to Phoenix Fortis, where stories of resilience, hope, and redemption take flight. I'm Diane. Today's letter comes from Matt, who takes us back to mornings on a neighbor's porch. At 5 years old, he thought it was all about juice and cookies. But years later, at her funeral, he discovered those visits meant something much more. To her, they were a lifeline. This is a story about grief and ritual, about how the smallest presence can fill the largest absence, and how, sometimes, without even knowing it, we sit in the very seat someone thought would stay empty forever. Dear Diane, when I was 5, I wandered into the orbit of the woman who lived next door, Miss June. My parents had just moved us into a little house on Maple Lane, and I was the kind of kid who never stopped moving. Dinosaurs in one hand, dirt on my knees, always poking my nose where it didn't belong. One morning, I spotted her on her porch. She was sitting at a small table, a steaming mug in front of her, and beside it, another chair. Something about the way it waited, empty and expectant, pulled me in. So, I climbed the steps. She smiled, polite but hesitant, and offered me a glass of juice. I remember the cup was too big for my hands, orange drops running down my wrist as I tried to sip without spilling. But when I went to climb into the chair across from her, she stopped me. "Not that one, sweetheart," she said, her voice kind but firm. "That chair's taken." I looked around. No one was there. I remember scanning the porch, confused. Who was it taken by? At 5 years old, the logic was simple. If it was empty, it was free. So the next morning, I came back. She said the same thing again. And the next morning after that. Eventually, I just sat down. Not out of stubbornness, not to be rude, just because I was a kid and chairs weren't sacred things to me. They were just chairs. She sighed, then let me stay. That's how it began. And from that day forward, that seat became my spot. As the years rolled on, that porch became more than just a place to sip juice. Miss June became my after-school sitter when Mom had to work late. She made grilled cheese sandwiches cut into little triangles because she said they tasted better that way. Saturday mornings, I'd wander over, still in my pajamas, and we'd sit side by side on that porch, me in my chair, hers in hers, watching the world wake up. She encouraged me when I struggled in school. She clapped for me when I learned to ride a bike. She told me stories about her garden, her travels, and the man she loved, though she never said his name. Back then, she was just Miss June, the nice lady with the warm porch and the good juice. Last week, we buried her. I'm 20 now, and it had been years since I'd last sat on that porch. After the service, my mom told me something I never knew. She said Miss June's husband had died just months before we moved in. For 50 years, that empty chair had been his place every morning. His coffee, her tea. When he was gone, she couldn't bring herself to move it. She just left it sitting there, a silent monument to everything she'd lost. And then came a curious little boy who didn't know any better, who climbed right into that chair and claimed it as his own. I didn't understand at the time. I only knew she poured the best juice, listened to my stories, and laughed like I was the funniest kid alive. But looking back now, I see it. What I thought was just noise and energy was, in truth, helping to stitch her broken spirit back together. When she died last month, I went back to that porch. The chairs were still there, sun-faded and worn. I sat down in mine, the wood groaning under me just like it always had. And for a moment, I closed my eyes, and I swear I heard her laugh again. Soft, steady, wrapping around me like a summer breeze. I didn't know it back then, but by sitting in that empty chair, I gave her a reason to keep going. And in her quiet, unshakable way, she gave me one too. A reason, a rhythm, a place to belong. Matt. Matt, thank you for this letter. What a beautiful, heartbreaking, and hope-filled tribute. Your story reminds us that sometimes the smallest rituals carry the heaviest weight. That empty chair wasn't just wood and fabric. It was a memorial, a scar that wouldn't close, a silent prayer whispered every morning. For years it sat untouched, echoing with absence. And then came you, a child who didn't know the rules of grief. With sticky hands and endless stories, you climbed into that chair. And without even realizing it, you brought laughter back to a place that had forgotten how to hold it. That's the power of presence. Not perfect words, not grand gestures, just showing up, just sitting in the places someone thought would stay empty forever. Sometimes that's all it takes to bring someone home to themselves. So if you're listening tonight and someone in your life carries an empty chair of their own, dare to sit with them. Dare to bring your presence into their silence. Because sometimes simply being there is the light that helps someone remember how to live again. And maybe you've lived this yourself. Maybe you've sat in the shadow of grief, or maybe someone filled a seat you thought would stay empty forever. If you have a story like that, a story of love, loss, resilience, or unexpected connection, we would be honored to share it here. Because your words might be the very thing that helps someone else remember they're not alone. That even in the quietest places of our lives, there can still be laughter, still be healing, still be hope. And here's our challenge to you this week. Take notice of the empty chairs around you, the neighbor who eats alone, the coworker who seems a little quieter than usual, the friend who hasn't called back. Be intentional. Fill that space with your presence. Even a smile, a quiet check-in, or a shared cup of coffee can mean more than you'll ever know. To our listeners out there, I want to speak directly to you. Maybe you feel invisible right now. Maybe you've been carrying grief that no one else seems to notice. Maybe you've been walking through your days wondering if your presence makes any difference at all. Don't lose hope. We see you. We hear you. And here on Phoenix Fortis, you have a voice, and you are not alone. Here's a hard truth. Sometimes you won't realize the impact you've had on someone until long after you've left their life, or long after they've left yours. But the love you pour out, the kindness you offer, the chair you choose to sit in, it matters. So choose to be kind today. Choose to show up. Because you may be filling a chair someone thought would stay empty forever. This has been Phoenix Fortis, where stories of resilience, hope, and redemption take flight. I'm Diane, and we'll be back soon with another story of love, resilience, and the quiet ways we are reminded that we are never truly alone. Until then, take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. And if you ever feel like the chair beside you will always stay empty, remember, sometimes all it takes is one moment, one presence, to bring life back into the silence. If you'd like more reflections from Diane's Hard Truths, be sure to check out our Phoenix Fortis shorts, brief moments of insight for the days you need the most. And as always, keep rising.